My name is Pepper Chambers, and I am the writer of the zip code play 90027 Griffith Park, The Fire in Between. And if you would like to learn more, please listen to more of this conversation. The theater experience is so unique for both the actors and the audience for multiple reasons. And I say this because I get very, very excited by theater, like very excited, just like a child. And so for the actor, I'll start there. So for the actor, it is really literally just, it really is make believe. The light is there, so you can't really see the audience. And so you're literally cocooned into this experience with these people that you're with, or if it's a one person show, whatever, you just become cocooned in this thing. And then it's about the imagination and just bringing all these things to life. And there's, I swear to goodness, there's nothing else like it. And just really having to make something come alive or and get to this place of truth and really believing what you're doing, not like acting, but like being in there. And so that's one thing to me, that there's nothing else like it. That just makes it so unique. And then for the audiences, it's almost, it's the same. Like you have to also have the suspension of disbelief. Is that right? Like you have to immerse yourself in there and not sit. I'm in a seat, uncomfortable, that's speaking, and someone's next to me. You really just have to, like, I am here. I'm with those actors. I'm with this experience, and just like dive in. So I just think that it's, clearly different from watching a film where there is that you don't have the sights and sounds and smells and things. And when you're in that space, you just have to let go and just like be a part of it. So my experience with Antaeus on the first zip code play was, I've lost track of time because of COVID, as we all say, but the first experience was a play called End of the Line. And this was early in pandemic, so this concept of kind of creating radio plays was still feeling a bit new. But I do love old things. So I kind of grew up listening to radio plays. And so I had this concept of like, oh my gosh, you're going to do this thing that I've listened to for like 1935. And so I submitted, that kind of process, submitted, was accepted. And then what I so much love is getting to work with the sound design, Jeff Gardner, and being with him and listening to how he creatively can hear the piece come together, and, cutting certain things to make it sound better and adding things to make it sound better. And then also working, of course, with the director and kind of, and all this was over Zoom, and just being this kind of remote experience that comes together in this audio experience that's for so many people. So it was wonderful to be working at the time, like literally just be working on something. And then for me, that play is called End of the Line, and it's about an experience about human trafficking and shedding a light. It's a deep topic, so I don't mean to just like pull it out of nowhere, but it is something that I'm concerned about, and I was concerned about it happening in my neighborhood, and I wasn't sure if I was witnessing it. And so I spoke to that experience and us having this awareness of things that are going on in our own neighborhood, which for me in that play is North Hollywood. So writing the second zip code play with Antaeus, the experience having gone through the first to the second was that I knew the value, I guess, and the beauty of what sound can do and can bring. And so that particular play is called The Fire in Between, and it's about the Griffith Park zip code. And so making a short story, is there was a fire that happened in 1933 in Griffith Park. And so as soon as I learned that, all I could hear was the sound of the fire, and like how much fun, for lack of a better word, that Jeff would have with creating that world. So it really, what I learned for sure was like, oh my gosh, how just the tool, I guess, like what the beauty of what sound can do, and wanting to write to that. Other times you're writing for the actors or you're writing for the story, but man, I was like writing for how can we make the sound be gorgeous. So the story for The Fire in Between for Griffith Park, it came from at the time as well, in Los Angeles, we're kind of constantly having stories, headlines about fires. And so I thought, oh, well, I believe I Googled what was the worst fire in Los Angeles. And that came up and then blew my mind. So the story is that, again, it was 1933, October, And this was during Santa Ana, there was a Santa Ana that day, and it made it a perfect storm, unfortunately, for this fire that happened in kind of a valley within Griffith Park. And it was during the Depression. And so these men were a part of a work relief program, and they were there, just trying to work. They weren't like forest people. They weren't firefighters. They weren't anything. They were just men from all backgrounds working. And then this fire started, unfortunately. And so the reason I had to tell the story is because as I dove into learning more about the men who lost their lives, I learned about them. So I learned that there were Black men, there were Russian men, there were, like all these, there were men from Puerto Rico, but on their birth certificate, I found their death certificates, and on their death certificates, it just said Mexican. And so this concept of like, these men were people who lived lives, and I wanted to just do what I could to show who they were, with the time and space that I had. So it was important because it's a Los Angeles story, and it's important because the identities of these people, I wanted us to know about them. So the main story arc is that these two gentlemen meet on their way to the job site, and one gentleman is Mexican and one gentleman is Black, and they're driving through Los Angeles, so from kind of like Inglewood area, and coming through Los Angeles, and you get this feeling of driving through the city and getting all the way to this park that many of us, like how often do we even go to Griffith Park? We kind of take it for granted that it exists. So it is kind of the story of two men getting from different backgrounds, getting to know each other and seeing their similarities and their differences, like recognizing both of those things, and then getting to the site and having to deal a little bit with racism. I didn't want that to be the main thing because we know it exists, so I didn't need to talk about it so much, but show that they are dealing with racism at the time, but also the humanity of being people. And then also I brought in this element of nature. So I wanted to pay homage to the, I want to say indigenous, I hope that's correct, the indigenous people of Los Angeles, which is the Gabrielino tribe. And so I brought in that culture along with us respecting nature, because we know too that these fires are happening because we're not respecting nature. So it's this concept of life and friendship, and then of course death. The audience knows the identity of my gentleman because I do talk about it. So there's one part where I have the Black character. He's trying to speak Spanish, and the guy's like, we don't need all of that. And so I try to creatively show who these people are through moments, and then with the other gentleman being Black, he says it. So I was pretty much like kind of say it, but then and then I talk about their experiences more than like the color of their skin or anything like that. So I just kind of bring up what they're going through to identify what their ethnicity is. So the actors, the director, and the text behind this play, they're all, of course, fantastically amazing people, and everyone brought something so special to it. So my director was Rondrell McCormick, and he goes by the name Drell, like you can call him Drell. And it was our first time working together. Antaeus paired us, and oh my gosh, this guy, he's so introspective, down to thinking about fabric. Even though it's a radio play, like what kind of clothes would the gentleman have been sitting on in the bus on their way to Griffith Park? And he was so into detail in the way that I'm in the detail, and we completely clicked, and just fantastic amazingness. So Rondrell McCormick was insanely fantastic. And then our cast was Peter Mendoza and Gerard Joseph and Mark Doerr. So Peter played, the young man that he's married to a woman that wants to be famous. Gerard has a baby on the way, but he doesn't know that that's just what he wants, but he just wants to live life. And then Mark played the captain guy, and he's the one that puts them to work. But he was in the war before, so he's got this concept of what it really means, like life and death and fighting and battle. And so I bring these three men together in a moment where, again, I talk about humanity a lot, but where they really needed to be people in order to look at their own survival. And one other thing too is I try to always bring women into my story, and so this is kind of one where it was this all male cast, and I don't know, I'm just bringing it up because I am cognizant of having female characters, and then I'm like, well, I guess I'm the one representing for this one. But those guys were great. And we cannot forget about Jeff Gardner, who does our sound, and he's a sound designer, and just he does a lot with Antaeus and actually around Los Angeles quite a bit. So he's just one of those sought after people that is so insanely talented at what he does. He just understands bringing in layers and beauty and using sound to the best it can be. What do I want for the audience? What I want for the audience to get out of this particular zip code play, The Fire in Between for Griffith Park, is two things. One is history. Los Angeles has so many stories, and this is one. I moved to Los Angeles in 2004, and I'd never heard about that story. So that's one thing, just knowing that this is another thing that happened in Los Angeles, as tragic as it was. And the other thing is that, with my art and the way that I write, I do try to shed light on topics. So this one was definitely about race and because of where we came through 2019, 2020, 21, and everyone being so polarized, and you're this and you're that. And I just wanted to be like, we are different, and we must be different, but we have so many more similarities. And let's just please focus on the goodness of each other. And that's what I want people to take away from this as well. When I listen to the third season plays with the zip code plays for Antaeus, I'm listening for all the fun technical stuff. So I'm really listening for like, oh my gosh, what did that writer write, and what were they trying to accomplish with the sound? The sound. And then I'm also listening to how the actors are interpreting this very brief moment. I mean, the recordings happen so fast. I think you get like one rehearsal maybe, and you go. It's a very short process. So I'm listening for how quickly they are able to adapt to what they've been given and just shine in their talent. Like, the talent is so incredible. It really is. And that's one of the fun things to listen to. Again, I talked about imagination earlier, and it's so fun to hear how people are, in this booth and just using their imagination to make things come alive. So I'm listening for that creativity, and I'm listening to what the writer, what they probably intended for us to experience. Audiences must listen to the zip code plays because it's enriching. It's an enriching experience that is unique. We're listening to a lot of podcasts these days and all of that, but as a radio play, it has its own place, its own feeling, its own thing. And all of these stories have something unique to say. So I would say it's a must, because to kind of give yourself something different to do, like literally creatively, but also to support. I mean, man, like, so much work has gone into this, and it's theater, and going through us having no theater, this is what we did. And so I think it is a must. It's a must to support and be there for all of us. So if people don't know, that the Antaeus also creates the zip code tours. So for each season, there is a tour that you can take that is related to the particular play. So it is super cool because you're on it, and then you're learning different things about the area. And again, I talk about us knowing, what we know about Los Angeles and the things that we don't. And these tours are so much like, oh gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And it's fascinating. It's just the coolest thing. I think it's so creative, and what a great idea. What a great accompaniment to get to hear this fiction. Some things are fiction, some things are like mine, based on real things. But then you get this tour that shows you the real things. Like, you can just, go there and do it. And I think it's fantastic. The Antaeus Playwrights Lab is, I just have to say, that's very important. It's pivotal. I'm struggling to find the words because I'm so emotionally attached to it. So I feel that it's important that that one, it creates community, and writers, you are working alone, at your computer, whatever, you're working alone quite a bit. And so to have a lab when you come together and you not only get to share each other's work, but just, you're in community with people, super important. And then the other part is that it is incubating work in some way, somehow. So whether the work is never heard or whether the work goes on to be produced, you're still incubating. You're working as a writer. Like, the lab puts you to work in a way that you might not otherwise have the opportunity to do. And I think for the other theater companies in Los Angeles and elsewhere, but specifically in Los Angeles, that have this type of thing, I think it's super important to do this. So speaking from my perspective as a Black woman, and I'm an emerging writer, but I am not emerging in age, so these things provide opportunity. It provided opportunity for me, and it provide opportunity for others to actually, again, be writing and have your work seen within a group, and hopefully then be produced like mine was. So labs are incredibly, they're just, they're nurturing, and they just have legs that are kind of invisible in some ways. And I think they're super important that they exist. And also, one other thing that's really great about this particular lab is that Antaeus has its own, its own acting company. So we have the greatest caliber of actors coming to this work. And so sometimes they're a part of, clearly, when we have the readings of the work during our Playwright Lab nights, they're there and they're a part of the process. They're bringing this work to life for you and with you, and with talent that is like at the top of what Los Angeles has to offer. So that's also cool to kind of have them be a part of a development process, and they're bringing, their heart and soul to it and making it great. But yeah, Antaeus, the actors are, top tier. So when it comes to involvement, I think that other actors and playwrights getting involved with Antaeus is, it's crucial. I mean, it's something where, of course, you have to be invited. And I say that in a way that, what do I want to say? Once you're there, it is its own world. It's its own thing that becomes this organism that is creating work that is far-reaching with its potential. And so, for that word alone, potential, I think that's one reason to 100% be involved with Antaeus, because it's a stronghold in the community. It does great work as an organization, provides opportunity for many people in many ways, from, on stage, off stage, behind stage, all of that kind of thing. And I just think it's important to be a part of something that is doing its best to provide for the community, provide not just entertainment, but provide experiences. When I say experiences, I mean that all encompassing. So here we are, and we're asking ourselves, when is it safe to go back to theater? Why is it safe to go back to theater? And, how do we support Antaeus? So I have to say for myself, I still think it's a personal choice, because, not everyone feels comfortable. I personally feel comfortable being in a theater, and I'm like chomping at the bit to go. And I think I've gone to one or two plays so far, and I felt okay. There was one where I was like, oh gosh, like early on, like, oh, it's too close. And that's why I say it's personal, because I feel that everyone's level of comfort is in a different place. And then I will offer this huge but if it's there, then I say go, and I say go because of the love of theater, not because I'm trying to be flippant about safety. But I do think it's a personal choice. Keep yourself safe, and if the environment is right, then I think you should go. And it's important specifically to go to Antaeus because I feel that the work is good, and because it's been, it's been worked on for so long, like everyone, but really these past couple of years of incubating this work and getting it out there. I think it's important to just to be a part of the experiences that Antaeus is putting out there. It's great work. It's work with messages. It's also classics and things that people do enjoy. I think that the content is curated in a way that is thoughtful and timely. So Antaeus is important in the Los Angeles theater community, and it's important that we support it literally so that it can continue. So, there's been a lot of changes in theater just in terms of, it's a big topic, but just say like in terms of having to provide, to pay people, just to put it frankly, and that just makes productions, it balloons how much money is going out to just put on something simple. And it's important to support, because what's happening, for example, is that to put on a play, because the cost is so high, we are getting plays, for example, that might only have two characters in it. And whereas before, that story may have been told with 10. Now, is that wrong, bad, good, whatever? Not necessarily, but when you have to choose a play that only has two people in it because of cost, that makes me think about something. Like, what are we saying? What are we doing? Like, what's happening? And but it's a 100% reality. So because of that, we do not want to have to curtail art any further than it is, good or bad. And so it's just important to keep supporting best you can. And that can be financially, and honestly, it can be time, but dollars go far. So it's really important to support theater like Antaeus. This has been fun. My name is Peppur Chambers, and I am a playwright with Antaeus' Zip Code Plays, season 2 and 3, thankfully. And please go listen. Please visit the website. Please listen to all of the plays. You will not be sorry, and you will learn something, and you'll be entertained. And when you feel safe, when you feel good, please go back to theater.